Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dan Wickline Show. I am your host, Trevor Slattery. And while I panic at first, then I handle it. How is everyone doing today? This is Tuesday, the first day of the week for me. Yesterday, I spent, doing other work and writing. I got the third chapter of my new project, the Ember Crest Protocol, written up and sent over to my editor to read over. The first two chapters are currently available up on Amazon on their Vela platform, and you can read them for absolutely free just by looking up the Ember Crest Protocol and clicking on the chapter. Do me a favor if you do, though, hit the like button or the follow button so I know you guys are out there. I would appreciate that greatly. Now, today we are going to talk about we're going to talk about the season finale of The Bad Batch. And we can say season finale instead of series finale because they have announced there will be a second season. And we're going to talk about Free Guy, which I got to go see in the theater on Friday, and I absolutely loved. So we're going to get to that, but there's a little bit of news we're going to cover first. So we'll go through that. But of course, there's probably going to be a lot of spoilers today. Some in the news, a lot going on in the rest of the show. But just keep in mind, there's going to be some spoilers today. And please feel free to hop into the conversation at any point you want. Throw your comments in, and I will read them and answer your questions. And please hit the like and subscribe buttons wherever they are on your screen. That helps drive us and let us know what we're doing or how we're doing. So, Trevor Fitzroy, that is better, Trevor. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the news. And for those of you waiting for the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, and that seems to be just about everybody, well, the word is that it's probably going to debut next week on Monday during Sony's 3-hour panel at CinemaCon. Now, the bad news is that it will only be shown at CinemaCon and not just put out on YouTube afterwards. Now, this is what they did with the Far From Home trailer, and then they waited months before releasing it to the public, like 6 months. But the difference is the window between CinemaCon and Far From Home was almost a year. Here, the difference is about 4 months from CinemaCon to when the movie's supposed to come out in December. It's still kind of there's still some anxiety going on about if other movies are going to have to move. We know Venom got pushed back 3 weeks. The COVID cases are stockpiling up higher and higher. So I wouldn't buy your tickets yet for a movie in December. Just saying. Now, the CinemaCon people are very, very security conscious. They do not let any electronic devices into their panels. So it's pretty safe bet that we're not going to get any leaked footage from the trailer when it drops. But there's a pretty damn good chance that someone is going to run outside immediately and post what happens, a description of the trailer and who we're going to see and what we're going to see. And there's already rumors out there of what the trailer is going to show. Is it true? We don't know yet. So we'll at least wait till CinemaCon before we start discussing it. But so expect by early next week, descriptions of the trailer will be online. And then on September 3rd is a release of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which would be an excellent time to debut the Spider-Man trailer. So we'll have to see if that's the case, but it makes a lot more sense than waiting. They could also wait until Venom drops because it is a Sony Marvel production or a Sony production rather than a Marvel production. But again, we'll have to see. So I expect if we don't get Spider-Man for Shang-Chi, I think we will get him for Venom. It would only make sense. All right, speaking of movies being pushed and the pandemic, Marvel Studio President Kevin Feige seems to be kind of hedging his bets on whether or not The Eternals is going to get a theatrical-only release. Now, we know they're going to do that with Shang-Chi, and during the premiere last night, somebody asked Kevin Feige, and he said, I think a theater would be my preference and Chloe's preference. We will see where we go with it. Now, Bob Chapek, the Disney's new CEO, recently referred to Shang-Chi as an experiment since it's getting a theatrical-only release, but its exclusivity is cut down from the normal 90 days to only 45 days. Now, the studio is probably wanting to see how that'll work financially and try to get some feedback on it before making the decision on the Eternals. Will it work? Will that work? Or is the Black Widow model the better way to go until everything is up and running again? Now, another movie, when Venom moved, it displaced Hotel Transylvania 4. Kyle says CinemaCon is expensive to go to. That is true. And I'm not sure if it's in LA or Vegas. But if the experience wants to send me, I'll be happy to go. Anyway, Hotel Transylvania 4, Transformer something or other, is not only getting bumped out of its slot for Venom, but there is now a deal in the works to have it premiere on Amazon instead of the theater, which kind of makes a lot of sense because your major marketplaces like New York and LA are making it mandatory for you to have either a proof of a vaccine or a negative test within 48 hours, which becomes very difficult for a kids movie or a family movie when kids under 12 can't even get the vaccine. So Sony has to stop and think, do we even have an audience to open it up to? So that's why it looks like Hotel Transylvania 4 is going to end up on Prime, and Amazon is going to pay them $100 million for it. Now, that's not the kind of money they could make in the theater. They could do better than that. It's a pretty popular franchise. But at the same time, they have lost two of their biggest stars on the project. Both Adam Sandler and Kevin James has exited the franchise. So, but that gets us back to what Marvel's going to do with the Eternals. I think Shang-Chi, even though Simu Liu took it as kind of offensive to refer to it as an experiment, it is a bit of a financial experiment, not from the idea of the casting or anything like that, but just from the idea of, in a pandemic, do you release it day and date in the theater and in streaming, or do you release it theatrical only with a shortened exclusivity window? How do you make your money back? These are big budget films. They need to make their money back on these things. So we shall see what happens with Shang-Chi, and that'll probably tell us what's going to happen to the Eternals. Now, shifting gears from the big screen to the small screen, when you hear the name Anne Rice, most people think about her extremely successful Vampire Chronicle novels, the ones with Lestat. Well, and of course, there was the big budget adaptation with Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Antonio Banderas. If you look back at that film, it's pretty ridiculous how many people were in it. Christian Slater, Kirsten Dunst. I mean, it was huge. Well, the prolific author has more than just the Vampire Chronicles. She also has the Mayfair Witches, which is another series of books. It's a trio of books that include The Witching Hour from 1990, Lasher from 1993, and Taltos from 1994. Well, AMC, who recently signed a deal to do a live-action Interview with the Vampire TV series, has now made a deal with her as well to do a series based on the lives of the Mayfair Witches. Now, this particular series focuses on a renowned neurosurgeon named Dr. Rowan Mayfair, whose estranged mother passes away and leaves her an inheritance, but along with it, she discovers her heritage, which is tied to Southern witchcraft and this mysterious spirit named Lasher. Now, little is known about this new series, including whether or not when it'll debut. But we do know that Interview with a Vampire is slated to release in 2022. And with the fact that that was just announced at the beginning of summer, and here we are already talking about the Mayfair Witches, I'm thinking that by the end of 2022, early 2023, we'll probably end up seeing this series as well. All right, let's move on over to the website View. They've added a new synopsis for Lennon. I'm going to wash my mouth so I can do something with it. Hang on. For Venom, Let There Be Carnage. And it's kind of interesting. There's a couple names in it we haven't yet had associated with the movie. So here's the synopsis. It says, Eddie Brock and Venom have their work cut out for them when Cletus Cassidy, a serial killer on death row, becomes the host of a new symbiote and escapes prison. Tom Hardy and Woody Harrelson star in the Sony Marvel sequel directed by Andy Serkis. It's been a year since the events of the first film, and Eddie Hardy is struggling to adapt to the life with Venom, an oily black alien substance that grants his superhuman abilities and a tendency to eat people's heads. That seems pretty kind of a loose description of both Venom and his thing about eating people, but let's go on. Looking to revive his career as an investigative journalist, Eddie pursues an interview with serial killer Cletus Harrelson. And in the thing they go, Solo, a Star Wars story, War for the Planet of the Apes. I'm not sure those are the first two that I think of when it comes to Woody Harrelson. But things soon go pear-shaped when the convict becomes the host of his very own symbiote and escapes his scheduled execution. Suffice to say, carnage ensues. Yay, they worked the title in. The impressive cast also features Michelle Williams, who was in the first Venom and also The Greatest Showman. Second name here, J.K. Simmons from Justice League, Whiplash, and Spider-Man Far From Home. Then we have Naomi Harris from Moonlight, No Time to Die, Stephen Graham from Line of Duty, Rocket Man, and The Irishman, and, you have to read this one closely, Tom Hollander from Bohemian Rhapsody and Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle. Now, the thing to note here are the inclusion of Simmons, as it's got to be Jonah Jameson, and this is the first confirmation we've had that he's in the movie, but also this kind of connects it to the Marvel Spider-Man movies because he's playing Jonah Jameson there as well. So that's the first solid connection we've had since the trailer for Morbius, where we see Michael Keaton's Vulture. The second thing is that they've cast Tom Hollander in the film. Now, this is not Tom Holland. This is a completely different actor. But this might remind some people of an online joke or a meme that's been going around that basically says the existence of Tom Holland and Tom Hollander means that somewhere out there must be an actor named Tom Hollandist. Yeah. The EXP, the experience, is Tom Holland in a fake mustache. See, no, he's not. It is a completely different actor. Though I do like the fact that when you look at the end of that list there, you have Stephen Graham from Rocket Man, the biopic about Elton John, and then you have Tom Hollander from Bohemian Rhapsody, the biopic about Freddie Mercury. So you got two big Live Aid people right there. That's what music is, what brings people together in Venom. All right, we got one more news story, and then we'll jump over to the other topics. And this one is a little bit of a spoiler too. So before I say it, Kyle, will you do that spoiler warning for me, please? All right. Dude, I love that. Okay. One of the surprises from last night's red carpet premiere of Shang-Chi, and if you want to walk into Shang-Chi with no expectation, just plug your ears, close your eyes, put mute for a second. 3, 2, 1. Okay. On the red carpet last night was the appearance of Sir Ben Kingsley. And while on the carpet, he confirmed that he is actually in the movie. A lot of people have speculated about it, but there was no confirmation. Well, what he said was, as you just saw, I was talking to Kevin Feige, and thanks to Kevin and Robert Downey Jr. and Drew Pearce and Shane Black, I am in this movie, and I'm a member of the Marvel family. Because of their welcome on Iron Man 3 was so astonishing and generous that I'm still with Marvel again, and I'm delighted to be here. Now, Kingsley appeared in Iron Man 3, of course, as kind of a bait-and-switch version of the Mandarin. He was actually actor Trevor Slattery, who was hired by Aldrich Killian, played by Guy Pearce, to pretend to be the Mandarin, to be a figurehead leader of a terrorist organization. Well, the problem is, and we find this out in the Marvel one-shot, All Hail the King, where Ben Kingsley also plays Trevor Slattery in jail, we find out that there really is a Mandarin, and he's sent one of his agents in as a documentarian to kidnap Trevor because he is pissed off that Trevor used his name and he wants it back. So the last time we see Trevor Slattery, he's being kidnapped from prison by the agent played by Scoot McNairy. And now he's somewhere with the Mandarin. So at some point in the film, we see Trevor Slattery pop up. Now, I don't know where this is. I know that there are two end credit scenes, one mid-credit and one end credit. And from what I'm told, both of them are important, that they will help set up the future of the Marvel Universe. The mid-credit one is supposedly the bigger or the more important of the two. So I don't necessarily think that's where we'll see Trevor. But it is nice that they're kind of bringing that back around and kind of cleaning up what a lot of people consider the biggest misstep in the MCU. You know, a lot of people were upset about the bait and switch. They wanted the real Mandarin. Well, we're finally getting the real Mandarin in Wen Wu, played by Tony Leung. Well, now they've got this cleanup to do, and it probably won't be much. It could just be a minute. I mean, he might be in it less than Wong. And, of course, Benedict Cumberbatch was not Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedict Wong was at the screening as well. And he did say he had a few scenes, but didn't really know the full script. So he was going in and seeing the movie for the first time. But the fact that he had a few scenes and not just his fight with Abomination is also a pretty cool sign. So, yeah, I am stunned by the reviews that we've been getting. There have not been the embargo on full reviews hasn't lifted yet. But the people who saw the movie the other night have been coming out and they can give their quick reactions, and they have been over the top positive. A couple of people that I've seen have called this the best Marvel origin movie. Now, that's not saying, like Winter Soldier may be the best Marvel movie in a lot of people's opinions, but it's not an origin story. Captain America: The First Avenger is the origin story for that. Though it could be the Falcon's origin story, if you look at it that way. Anyway, they're saying that this is up there. One guy said that this was the best superhero movie he has seen since Logan, which means better than Endgame and Infinity War. That's pretty big. So it's getting a lot of positive buzz, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. But I got to wait to see it in the theater because I didn't get any of the special invitations. All right. we are going to go on here and talk about. Let's talk about the Bad Batch first. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of conversations about the Bad Batch on the show here. I think I've talked 1 or 2 times about it. But overall, I've been following it and I've been watching, and it's a good series, but it's not a great series. And Disney may have hampered the series by placing it in the same time slot that we got used to seeing stuff like WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier and The Mandalorian. Now, Amani says he enjoyed Bad Batch. And I'll be honest, I enjoyed the Bad Batch, but I think going into it, people expected it to be an event series like all these other ones have been. And it's really just the next season of the Clone Wars. You know, there's a lot of ties to the Clone Wars. It's not a show that you can easily jump in and watch without having sat down and watched the Clone Wars or Rebels. It's really a connector. It's kind of like Rogue One. A lot of people like Rogue One. And if you are up on Star Wars lore, Rogue One's a great movie. But it's a bridge. It's a connection between the prequels and the original films. By itself, if you were introducing somebody to the Marvel movies or the Star Wars movies for the first time, then yeah, you're going to have a hard time picking up on what's going on if Rogue One is the first movie you've ever seen. Because it doesn't really do much world building. It doesn't do any character development. These guys are basically introduced and put on their suicide run, and that's pretty much the film. So Amani says it was buried under What If and Loki. Yeah. Well, the Bad Batch had about 4 or 5 weeks where it ran on its own. And the premiere episode, the pilot episode, was really strong. It was 70 minutes long. It had a little bit of the Clone War vibe. It had a similar opening, the whole propaganda reel thing. And it closed off the Clone Wars. It was the door closing of the Clone Wars and setting up the Bad Batch and who we're going to follow. And coming out of that pilot episode, I was stoked. We saw Tarkin. He wasn't Grand Moff at this point. I think he was just a Moff. But we saw Tarkin, so we had a little bit of the ties to the other series. But overall, it was the Bad Batch. And they introduced Omega. And she was a little annoying, but I got it. I understood. Then the next couple episodes just dealt with them trying. JD, we're talking about the Bad Batch right now, and then we're going to talk about Free Guy. So that's what we're spoiling. The next couple episodes really felt like filler to me, and there were a lot of episodes that felt like filler. You know? Yeah, Omega is Dave Filoni's big trick. Everything I've seen from Dave Filoni, whether it's the Clone Wars, Rebels, the Bad Batch, or even you can count the Mandalorian in this, is you introduce your heroes and you introduce a young, somewhat annoying character, and then they grow to bond with each other, and then you bring the character along and the audience starts loving the character. He did that great in Clone Wars with Ahsoka Tano. But then he did it again in Rebels with Ezra Bridger. I was going to say Ezra Miller. Totally different. Ezra Bridger. Well, we get that in The Mandalorian, though Grogu is very young, and it doesn't quite follow that as well as the other one does, but it's still there. But now we're getting it in the Bad Batch as well. And it's like, okay, Filoni, are you really a one-trick pony? Is this your gig? Is what you do? It's your M. Night Shyamalan twist. You just introduce a young, annoying character and then make the audience like them as you grow the character. Well, that's what he's trying to do with Omega here. And it's becoming less and less about the Bad Batch and more about her. And we saw that in how important Ahsoka Tano became. And now Ahsoka Tano's getting her own series. So he's good at what he's doing, but he keeps doing the same thing. And it seems kind of weird that we're doing that again. I think the Bad Batch could have very easily have been almost the A-team of Star Wars, where you have this group of ex-clones who are off the reservation, and instead it clings so much to the other material. You know, we get the Rex sightings, we get other members from the Clone Wars, and then we get a 2-episode origin story for Hera from Rebels. And again, Hera and Chopper. And again, I don't know why that's in there. You know, they really could have trimmed off. It's a 16-episode season. They could have done it in 8 to 10 episodes, made it a lot better too. You know, we get to the end and we get the whole story finally with Crosshairs. And the most interesting thing we find out in the finale is that Crosshairs had his chip removed already and was still siding with the Empire, which is the big reveal. But when he's asked, well, when did you have it removed? He won't say. Which, if they would have said, you know, years ago or before all of this happened, then we see him in a different light. If it was, oh, when I got hurt on that planet recently, and you know that's where the scars came from, then that's a little more recent. So somebody I know referred to it as a filler season. And I kind of get that, because there was some good beats. The destruction of Kamoa, the Kamoan cloning facility, the setup of taking one of the Kamoans to work on the cloning stuff for the Empire. There are some good beats in there, and there's some good story. The characters are interesting. But we kept going off on these side trips. Like I said, the whole Hera story didn't really make any sense to me to have in there. It's just a way to connect it to Rebels. And the whole there's a whole episode where they're on a stray planet trying to find a piece to fix the ship. And it's supposed to be this bonding episode, but you don't have to leave the main storyline to do character growth. You can do it within the main storyline, but they didn't seem to be able to do that. They literally would step out of the main storyline to focus on character growth and then come back. And there was this whole Sid character played by Rhea Perlman, who I thought she was interesting and entertaining. But the episodes with Sid were very away from the main storyline. I think one of them tied in because of the where they put them. But overall, it was this whole subplot, and it was more of a TV series, like a network TV series, than it was an event series. And again, if they would have come out and said, yeah, Bad Batch is going to be Clone Wars Season 8, you know, it's the connector season between that and the Rebels, then that'd be one thing. But I think they set expectations wrong by putting it in the same slot as these other event series. And I know some people who, Paul Story, my co-host for Popco The Writers, absolutely loved everything about the show. Thought it was great, enjoyed every episode. Me, I enjoyed a lot of the episodes, but a lot of them I could have done without. So that's pretty much my thoughts on the Bad Batch. Why don't we take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll start talking about Free Guy. So back in just a minute.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Yeah, that new opening needs a little work still. Yep. Yeah, the musical choice, if anybody's interested, is actually called March of the Puppets, and it's myself and artist or guitarist Don Pena doing a song we put together. But I think the mix on it's wrong, and I've been working on it. I gave Kyle another version of it, but I don't think he's had a chance to play with it yet. So we'll see if we can improve that any. Okay. Let's talk Free Guy. Again, spoilers. If you haven't seen Free Guy, go see it. But Kyle, let's do that spoiler thing one more time. Thank you, sir. Okay. All right. By the way, before I forget, coming up next on The Experience, Black Comic Universe. I know I say University a lot. It's Black Comic Universe, and with guest George Grant. And then after that is Minute to Skim It with Jen. And they're going to go through the new comics they've got in. And then it'll be Kyle and I back for our 2-hour extravaganza where we talk about the books coming into the shops tomorrow. So stick around. We got a lot of great stuff on The Experience for you tonight. All right. So, Free Guy. This movie could easily have gotten lost in the shuffle. This was in production and ready to go even when Disney bought Fox. And there was all the talk about all the big properties and getting the Marvel Universe characters back. The Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Deadpool. What are we going to do with Deadpool? When are we going to... And nobody was really talking about this movie. And it had... the trailers for it came out before the pandemic or right around the beginning of the pandemic, and then it got delayed, and it just seemed like this movie was being forgotten And then all of a sudden, new trailers started coming out again. And Marvel and Disney did probably the smartest thing ever. They put out a reaction video for a trailer, but featuring Deadpool and Korg, which is the first time a Fox Marvel character and an MCU character had crossed over. Plus, both the actors, Taika Waititi and Ryan Reynolds, who do those parts, are in Free Guy. And I think it totally got everybody's attention because it was funny as hell. But B, it's like, wait, Marvel and Disney let this happen? They were okay with it? They were okay with R-rated Deadpool sitting on a couch with CGI Korg? And that should have told us something. Well, if you haven't seen it yet, Ryan Reynolds has already announced that Disney is asking for a sequel. So looks like there's going to be a Free Guy 2 and Loose in the City or whatever you want to call it. But the concept of this movie, this is an original IP in an era where everything seems to be sequels and remakes. And it made like over 10 million its first day, like 28 million its opening weekend in the middle of a pandemic, theatrical release only. That's crazy. That is big numbers for what this movie is. But putting that aside, the movie itself is absolutely brilliant because they took a concept that seemed really simple. What if an NPC became self-aware? And in this case, what if an NPC became self-aware by being attracted to one of the regular characters? Which seems like a totally off-the-wall plot. But there's enough in it that you've got this crazy video game world property with a romantic comedy in the middle of it. The meet cute, all those things, all those elements are there, but in this weird world. And there were little homages and little... It felt like a very familiar movie. The character wakes up, every time he dies, he wakes up the next morning and does the same thing again. And we've seen that in Groundhog Day and just recently in Boss Level. And there are so many movies that do the loop, the time loop thing. But it's not really a time loop. It's his programming. And then there's this element of the sunglasses that whoever has the sunglasses on are the hero characters and are allowed to do anything they want. And it's when he puts the sunglasses on that he starts seeing that he sees the other parts of it and how to level up and the fact that it's a game. And that is very reminiscent of They Live. And if you haven't seen They Live, you should go back. And that is just a phenomenal movie with Roddy Piper and Keith David. And I think it's a John Carpenter. Is it John Carpenter? I think it's a John Carpenter film. And that is just a phenomenally fun movie. You know, and here we've got that similar thing. And there's even there's other little subtler nods, like the fact he works in the bank, and the big scene from They Live is him walking into a bank and saying, I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Well, and then on top of that, the character has a favorite ice cream that he takes the girl to, or ice cream place, and his favorite flavor is bubblegum ice cream. So there were a lot of little They Live references in there, influences. There was a lot of other little familiarity. Taika Taika Waititi's villain Antoine is about as mustache twirling as you can get, but it works because he's playing opposite of Guy, Ryan Reynolds' Guy, who is also a very good guy. You know, I mean, like, he finds the girl he wants to get to know better, wants to be with her, whatever it is. And she kind of like, look, you're level 1, you know, level up some. And she's a level like 196. And he sets out to level up, but he doesn't want to do it as a bad guy. So he starts helping people. And in doing so, he becomes internet famous. Well, but everybody thinks he's a character that just happens to have an NPC skin. The interesting things that they did with this movie, though, is that there are a bunch of scenes of YouTubers talking about the game and talking about the character. And instead of just casting actors, they cast real YouTube players. You know, Ninja, and I don't remember all the names, but Pokemon or something like that, Mom or whatever it is. So they cast actual YouTubers in the roles of the YouTubers. So that brings in a whole new group. There are a bunch of little cameos in there. Channing Tatum has a much bigger role than I would have expected as one of the best players as this avatar, the avatar of it. He's not the player himself. The player is, oddly enough, from Stranger Things, as is one of the main characters. But it's just a very interesting movie, and it's a lot of fun. And I think part of it was, this is the first film I've seen in a theater since, I want to say, Birds of Prey. I was going to go see Bloodshot, and the pandemic hit. So I ended up getting it on VOD. So Birds of Prey was the last film I'd actually gone to the theater and saw. I saw Black Widow on Disney Plus. So that experience, I went with my girlfriend, her kids, and and some family and stuff. So we had the big movie going outing. And the kids absolutely loved this film. Lisa loved the film. We all really enjoyed this film. But it is fun. That's the key, is you've got Ryan Reynolds' humor. You know, he's just such a likable person and a likable character that you want him to succeed. And it's this weird mix of doing badass things, yet being completely surprised he can do badass things, that makes it endearing. But there's this underlying story about these two programmers who build a game that is not really a game. It's more of it's like Second Life, but with AI. And then they sold it to this company that Antoine runs, and he uses it as the backbone for his game, Free City. And it's all about him, you know, them trying to prove that he used their code without permission or whatever it is, and not giving them credit for it. And where one of the guys ends up, can't think of the character's name, but the guy ends up working for Antoine, and the girl is trying to hack in, and he ends up helping. So you've got this conflict in the middle of it. You've also got this odd romantic thing going on between the two of them that you kind of see is there, but it's not. But then she's kind of falling for the end piece for Guy, but doesn't realize he's not a real person. And it's a surprisingly straightforward story for having a lot of complex components. You know, first you've got to accept the fact that a programmer wrote a code that, in a way, that started teaching and learning and growing and becoming an AI, an actual artificial life. that he did so, what made the difference was him putting in this lovelorn, for the character to have this lovelorn, and doing it for the girl that he likes, the programmer likes. That's the basis for all of this actually happening. And it's pretty fascinating because, like I said, it's a pretty convoluted plot, but it's presented so easily and in such tiny little chunks that it's just super easy to follow. And you're just, at the same time, you're seeing all this fun stuff. You're seeing him becoming a hero in the game and the reaction of all the people. And there's all these fun little cameos. You've got voice cameos, and you have to really pay attention for them. But Hugh Jackman, Tina Fey, John Krasinski, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, they all do voice cameos in this. And like I said, Channing Tatum. But the ending is probably what got drastically changed by the merger. I mean, Ryan Reynolds talks about the fact that he just started calling up these people and said, "Hey, you want to do this?" And just do a voice recording and send it in. And they all went, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Well, then the merger happens. And again, spoilers for the ending, but I did say that there were spoilers in this. They were able to use properties from Marvel and Star Wars in this film that they wouldn't have been able to had this merger not happened. Had Disney not bought Fox, the movie would have ended with, from what I understand, an appearance of Cable's gun from Deadpool 2. And I don't know about you, but that doesn't have an iconic status where in the movie we get, again, spoilers, we get Captain America's shield. His arm turns into that of the Hulk. And he busts out a lightsaber. And when those things appear, we get the Avengers music and we get the Star Wars theme. And to top all that off, we get a cameo by Chris Evans, who says, "What the shit?" Which I know some people online are saying, well, maybe that's a callback to his line in Knives Out, where he just goes around to the whole family telling them to eat shit all around. Yeah. But it's pretty, I got to say, the effect in the theater when those popped up on the screen, when he puts the glasses on and scrolls through his weapons and you see Captain America's shield and you hear the music, and it is electric. I mean, it is absolutely electric. Then Chris Evans pops up on the screen and the entire audience is floored. And I saw this on Friday, opening night, not the preview, but the opening part of it. And the theater was pretty well packed. I mean, not horribly overflowing, but yeah, there's a lot of people, and still getting used to that from the pandemic. But it was an amazing reaction. It was, I don't want to say it was Captain America picking up Thor's hammer, but it's in that ballpark because so many people got that engaged in the movie. They got that far into it. And then suddenly to see him pop up with this iconic shield or to bust out a lightsaber just really gets fans going. And then also the fact that the bad guy that he's facing is a roided out version of himself that hasn't quite been finished programming. Again, that is a complicated concept done so succinctly and simply that it just clicks, and that everybody in the audience just gets it, you know? So this movie didn't dumb itself down. It didn't try to spoon feed everything to people, but it also did it in such a way that it assumed that you're an intelligent person and that you could follow along. And then they did it in such a way that it was easy to follow along. So I was really impressed by that. We walked out of the theater and all of us were talking about the movie, talking about our favorite parts, talking about how good it was. And I've come out of a lot of movies where, yeah, you come out and you talk about it maybe, or you immediately start, well, what we do? We're going to get Wiener Schnitzel, or we should stop and get ice cream, or, But we came out and everybody's like, what did you think? I thought it was great. It was, and talking about, well, how did they use Captain America's shield? Well, Disney bought Fox. So that's what everybody wanted to talk about, was the movie. And again, that doesn't happen very much when you come out of a theater nowadays. But I literally walked out of that movie happy, really enjoying the experience. I love that I got to see it in a theater. And I'm not the biggest theater goer. I like to see movies on the big screen, but mainly because I don't want to wait. Had it been offered on one of the streaming services, I might have done that, but that would have been a mistake, because I think this is a movie that deserves to be on the big screen. It's got a lot of huge action pieces, but it's a movie with a ton of heart and a really good romantic comedy at its base. And the humor just really works well. And I mean, the whole cast, his best friend, I think it's a Little Rel Howie, I think is his name. But he plays his best friend, Buddy, named Buddy. And he is just so genuinely happy and such a good guy that you love him, or the other NPC characters he talks to. They all just work. You start to care about, well, what's the barista going to do? Oh, she's teaching herself cappuccinos. She's teaching herself these things. It's like, the code just starts working, and you really like these characters. And then you really start to dislike Antoine because he's starting to mess with people. So it's probably a little too adult in content for young viewers. But I'd say teenagers up, this is a good movie for everybody from teenager up. And even if you have a mature 9, 10-year-old, they probably, a gamer kid, they'll probably love it too. But there is some mature stuff, but nothing too bad. And like I said, the cameos work, the humor works. Ryan Reynolds is amazing in it. I don't know how they'll do a sequel. I don't even know if they should do a sequel. It's kind of its own perfect little movie, and it should be put over here on its own by itself. So yeah, I don't know if I would do a sequel, and I gotta wait to see what they come up with story-wise. But I think I would be happy if that was it. Free Guy existed by itself. Not every movie needs a sequel or a reboot or a prequel or anything like that. We don't need to see anything else. The only complaint, and this wasn't my complaint, it was Lisa's, was the ending. There's the two human characters have the moment where they meet in the street and they're about to kiss, and they cut away from the kiss, and she was upset about that because she said that we'd earned the kiss, that we deserve to have that moment, and they cut from it. And they cut from it because the real happy ending moment comes a second later when Guy and Buddy are reunited. That's that's the ending moment, and having them actually kiss might take that away. But I can see both sides of that one. But overall, I think Free Guy is an awesome movie. I really enjoyed it, and when it hits streaming service, I'm going to watch it again. And this is a movie that I definitely will watch again. All right, guys, we are going to wrap this up. Remember, stick around for Black Comic Universe with George Gant, and then I'll be back at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern for In Stores This Week with my buddy Kyle. See you then. Have a great night.